They threw me out of my own home like garbage. My billionaire husband handed me divorce papers in front of 300 people while they laughed and recorded every second. I sat on that curb with nothing, no money, no phone, nowhere to go. But what they didn't know was that my father was pulling up in his truck, and he was about to show them who really owned everything they were celebrating in. This is the story of how I lost everything in one night and got my revenge in the next 5 minutes. Stay with me, because you won't believe what happened next. Welcome to Reality Stories Hub. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. You know that moment when your entire world comes crashing down? When everything you believed in turns out to be a lie? I'm about to tell you about the night that happened to me. But stick with me, because this story has a twist that nobody saw coming. Not even me. My name is Elena, and I need to take you back to a time when I thought I had it all figured out. Picture this. I'm 28 years old, fresh and full of dreams, working as an interior designer in downtown Chicago. I loved my job. I loved creating beautiful spaces where people could build their lives and memories. Every project felt like painting on a blank canvas, and I was good at it. Really good. That's when I met him. Daniel Bradford. He was 43, sophisticated, incredibly wealthy. He owned a software company that was making millions. When he walked into my design studio that Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. He needed someone to redesign his corporate offices, and he wanted the best. His words, not mine. We clicked instantly. He made me laugh. He listened when I talked about my ideas and dreams. He treated me like I was the most important person in the room. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. 6 months after that, he proposed to me on a yacht in the middle of Lake Michigan, with fireworks spelling out my name in the sky. Everyone told me I was living a fairy tale. The girl from the west side of Chicago who grew up in a small apartment above her father's hardware store, now marrying a tech millionaire. My friends were jealous. My family was proud. Daniel's world was so different from mine. Charity galas, exclusive clubs, vacation homes in 3 different states. It was overwhelming but exciting. We got married in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. 200 guests, a designer wedding dress, a honeymoon in Paris. His mother, Catherine, wore cream to my wedding. I remember thinking it was strange, but I didn't say anything. I was too happy to care. Too in love to see the warning signs. The first few years were good. Or at least I thought they were. Daniel traveled constantly for business. I gave up my design studio because he said he wanted me available to travel with him, to be by his side at important events. He said a wife of his stature shouldn't be working anyway. He could take care of everything. Looking back now, I see how slowly I lost myself. First, it was my career. Then my independence. Then my friends, because I was always too busy with Daniel's schedule. My world became smaller and smaller until it revolved entirely around him. Around his needs. His business. His image. But I told myself this was love. This was partnership. This was what successful marriages looked like. 5 years went by like that. 5 years of being the perfect wife. Hosting his business dinners. Smiling at his colleagues. Supporting his dreams while mine collected dust in the back of my mind. And then our anniversary approached. Daniel insisted on throwing a huge celebration. He planned everything himself, which surprised me because he usually hired people to handle those things. He said he wanted it to be special. He wanted to show everyone how much he loved me. He used those exact words, and I believed every single one. The party was set for our penthouse in downtown Chicago. 400 guests were invited. Celebrities, politicians, business moguls, people whose faces you'd recognize from magazines and television. The guest list read like a who's who of Chicago's elite society. But something felt wrong in the weeks leading up to it. Daniel became distant. Cold even. He stopped touching me. Stopped talking to me beyond basic necessities. When I'd enter a room, he'd leave it. His phone was always face down on the table. Always password protected. Always out of reach. I tried to talk to him about it, but he brushed me off. Work stress, he'd say. Big deals closing. Investors to manage. I wanted to believe him. God, how badly I wanted to believe him. 3 days before the party, something strange happened. I went to pay for groceries, and my card was declined. Then the next card. Then the next one. I called the bank, confused and embarrassed, with a line of people behind me waiting. The bank representative said all my accounts were frozen pending some kind of review. She couldn't give me details. I called Daniel immediately. He didn't answer. I left 3 messages. Nothing. His business partner, Jeffrey, had always made me uncomfortable. He'd make these little comments that felt wrong, jokes that weren't really jokes. Daniel never stood up for me. He'd just laugh awkwardly and change the subject. I learned to avoid Jeffrey at parties, but he was always there, always watching, always smirking. My father called me the afternoon of the party. His name is Thomas, and he's the strongest man I know. He built his hardware business from nothing, working 16-hour days to give me and my sister everything we needed. He said he was running late, that he'd gotten held up with a supplier issue. I told him not to worry, that the party wouldn't really start without him anyway. That was a lie. The party started exactly at 7 o'clock, and Daniel made sure of that. When I walked into that penthouse that evening, wearing a custom silver gown that cost more than my father made in 6 months, I felt beautiful. The space was transformed. Crystal everywhere. White orchids. Champagne towers. A live string quartet. Guests were already mingling, laughing, taking photos for social media. I saw people I recognized from television, from business magazines, from red carpets, and they were all there in my home, celebrating my marriage. At least, that's what I thought was happening. Have you ever had one of those moments where time seems to slow down? Where you can see something terrible about to happen, but you're powerless to stop it? That's what the next hour felt like. Every second stretched out like torture, and I didn't even know it was coming. Daniel's assistant, Rachel, kept circling around him all evening. She was his ex-girlfriend from college, and he'd hired her 2 years ago despite my concerns. I'd told him it made me uncomfortable, but he said I was being insecure, that it was just business, that I needed to trust him. She wore a tight red dress that night. Every time I looked over, she was whispering something in his ear, and he'd nod. My stomach churned, but I pushed the feeling down. Not tonight. Not at our anniversary party. I refused to let my insecurities ruin this evening. Around 8:30, Daniel clinked his champagne glass with a fork. The sharp sound cut through the music and conversation. Everyone stopped talking. The quartet stopped playing. 400 people turned to face us, standing on the raised platform near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. I smiled, expecting something romantic, something about our journey together, about love and commitment and the future. That's what husbands do at anniversary parties, right? Instead, Daniel started talking about mistakes, about how sometimes in life, we make choices that seem right in the moment but turn out to be completely wrong, about how we convince ourselves of things that aren't true. My smile started to fade. I looked around at the crowd. People looked confused. Some were exchanging glances. I reached for Daniel's hand, but he stepped away from me. Actually stepped away, like I was contagious. Then he said the words that destroyed me. Sometimes you marry the wrong person for all the wrong reasons. The room gasped. My heart literally stopped beating for a second. I stared at him, searching his face for some sign that this was a joke, some elaborate setup for a surprise. But his eyes were empty, completely empty, like he was looking at a stranger. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He held it up for everyone to see. "These are divorce papers," he announced, his voice echoing through that massive room. The gasps turned into shocked whispers. I couldn't breathe. My vision started to blur at the edges. "Elena has been lying to me from the beginning," Daniel continued, and his voice was so calm, so matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. "She married me for my money. She violated our prenuptial agreement. And she's been unfaithful." None of that was true. Not a single word. We didn't even have a prenup because I refused to sign one. I told him I loved him, not his money, and he said he trusted me. And unfaithful? I hadn't even looked at another man in 5 years. I barely left the house except for his events. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but my voice came out broken. "Daniel, what are you doing?" That's when Rachel stepped forward. She had a tablet in her hands, and she started showing it to people nearby. Photos. Pictures of me with some man I'd never seen before in my life. In compromising positions. In situations that never happened. They were fake. Obviously fake to anyone who looked closely. But nobody was looking closely. They saw what they wanted to see. A young woman who trapped a rich older man and got caught. Catherine, Daniel's mother, stepped forward dramatically. She'd flown in from New York 2 days earlier and had barely spoken to me. "I knew it," she practically shouted. "I told you from the beginning, Daniel. I told you she was after your money. Girls like her always are. Girls like her. Like me." I knew exactly what she meant, and so did everyone else in that room. The crowd started murmuring. Some people were actually pulling out their phones and recording. My humiliation was becoming entertainment. Content for their social media feeds. A story they'd tell at their next dinner party. I tried to speak louder, to explain, to tell them this was insane. But Daniel raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Actually snapped his fingers like I was a dog he was commanding. For security guards appeared from different corners of the room. Big men in black suits. I'd never seen them before. They weren't our regular building security. These were Daniel's people, brought in specifically for this moment. "Remove her," Daniel said simply. 2 words that destroyed everything. They grabbed me. 1 on each arm, their grips so tight I knew I'd have bruises. I fought back, pulling away, screaming, asking why. My dress caught on something and I heard it rip. The sound of tearing fabric was so loud in my ears. People were laughing now. Not even hiding it. I heard the laughter mixing with the camera clicks and video recordings. Someone said, "This is absolutely insane." Someone else responded, "Are you getting this? This is going to go viral." They dragged me through that crowd like I was garbage. Like I was nothing. I saw faces I recognized. People I'd cooked dinner for. People whose charities I'd donated to. People I thought were friends. They all watched. Some looked uncomfortable and turned away, but most just stared. Or recorded. Or both. The guards pulled me through the penthouse, past the furniture I'd chosen, past the art I'd carefully selected, through the front door, down the hallway, into the elevator. They didn't let go until we reached the street level. They threw me out onto the sidewalk. Literally threw me. My shoes broke. My dress was torn and hanging off my shoulder. My makeup was running down my face in black streaks, mixing with my tears. The building doors closed behind me with a heavy thud. And through the windows, I could see the party continuing. They went back to celebrating. Back to drinking and laughing and networking. I was erased. Have you ever felt completely alone in a city full of millions of people? That's what it feels like to have your entire life taken away in a single moment. I sat on that cold sidewalk in downtown Chicago, in my torn designer dress, with nowhere to go and no one to call. I tried to use my phone, but it was dead. Of course it was dead. The phone Daniel bought me. The phone on his plan. Already disconnected. Everything he'd given me, the cards, the access, the accounts, all cut off. Planned. Calculated. Executed perfectly. I had nothing. Not a single dollar in my pocket. No way to get home. But where was home? I'd given up my apartment when we got married. I'd left my design studio to support his career, to be the perfect wife, to host his parties and attend his events. I'd made myself completely dependent on him. And now I had nothing. Cars drove past me. People walked by on their way to restaurants and bars, laughing and enjoying their Friday night. A couple crossed the street to avoid me. I must have looked like a crazy person, sitting there in a torn evening gown, crying on the sidewalk. Some guests started leaving the party early. I watched them come down in the elevator, walk past me to their cars. They looked at me, whispered to each other, kept walking. One woman actually took a picture of me. I heard her say to her friend, "It's already trending on Twitter. Check the hashtag." My humiliation wasn't just public. It was global. Viral. Permanent. I don't know how long I sat there. Time stopped meaning anything. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to understand where I went wrong. How did I miss the signs? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do to deserve this? My father's voice echoed in my memory from years ago, before the wedding. We were sitting in his hardware store, and he was worried. "Elena, baby, make sure you always keep something of your own," he'd said. "Don't ever make yourself completely powerless. I don't care how much you love him." I didn't listen. I thought love was enough. I thought trust was enough. I was wrong about everything. Then I saw headlights. A pickup truck, old but well-maintained, pulled up slowly and stopped right in front of me. The window rolled down, and there he was. My father, Thomas Rivera. 62 years old, gray hair, weathered hands, wearing his work jacket because he'd come straight from the hardware store. He'd been restocking inventory, which is why he was late. "Elena, you okay, sweetheart?" He said it casually, like he was just picking me up from a normal event. Then he actually looked at me. Really looked at me. His face changed completely. The color drained from it. His jaw tightened. "What happened to you?" I couldn't even speak at first. I just broke down, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. My whole body was shaking. He got out of the truck, and despite being tired from a long day of work, he lifted me up and held me like I was 5 years old again. "Tell me everything," he said quietly, but there was something dangerous in his voice. "Right now. Every detail." So I told him. The party, the accusations, the fake photos, the security guards, the humiliation, the laughter, the videos, being thrown out like trash. I told him everything, and he listened without interrupting. But I watched his jaw get tighter and tighter with every word. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Too quiet. That's when I knew something was different. My father wasn't crying. He wasn't comforting me with soft words. He was thinking, calculating. Then he said something that confused me completely. "That penthouse they're partying in right now. The one he just threw you out of." He walked to his truck and opened a lockbox in the back. He pulled out a folder thick with papers. Official documents with seals and signatures and legal stamps. "I own it," he said simply. I didn't understand. I thought my father owned a small hardware store. I thought we were comfortable but not wealthy. I thought Daniel was the one with all the money and power. I was wrong about that too. My father explained it to me calmly, like he was explaining how to use a hammer. 5 years ago, right before Daniel proposed to me, his software company was failing. Badly. He was about to lose everything. The business, the reputation, the lifestyle, all of it. He was drowning in debt and couldn't get loans from any bank because his credit was destroyed. My father had known Daniel's father before he passed away. They'd done business together. So when Daniel came to him desperate, begging for help, my father listened. He gave him $75 million. Let that sink in for a moment. My father, the man I thought just ran a small hardware store, gave Daniel Bradford $75 million. The penthouse in downtown Chicago was collateral. The deal was simple. Daniel could live there, run his business, rebuild his empire, but Thomas Rivera owned the property. The only condition was that Daniel had to treat me right. That was the only thing my father asked for. Respect his daughter, and everything else would be fine. My father had stayed quiet about it because I seemed happy. Because I loved Daniel. Because he didn't want to interfere in my marriage. But he'd been watching. Always watching. "I had him investigated last month," my father said, pulling out more papers. "Something felt wrong when you called asking about investment advice. You never ask about money." So I checked. What he found was damning. Daniel's company was failing again. Nearly bankrupt. He'd been moving money to offshore accounts, hiding assets, preparing for a divorce so he wouldn't have to split anything with me. Rachel wasn't just his assistant. They'd been having an affair for over a year. His mother knew. Jeffrey knew. Everyone knew. Except me. My father looked at me with fire in his eyes. The kind of fire I'd only seen a few times in my life, and it usually meant someone was about to learn a very hard lesson. "You ready to go back in there?" he asked. I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Going back into that building, facing those people again, facing Daniel after what he'd just done? Every part of me wanted to run away, to hide, to disappear. But I nodded, because something had shifted inside me. The shame was turning into anger. The hurt was turning into fury. My father straightened his work jacket. I wiped my face with my hands, probably smearing my makeup even worse, but I didn't care anymore. "Hold your head up, Elena," he said. "You're a Rivera. Act like it." We walked back to that building. My father pressed the button for the penthouse. The same security guard who'd thrown me out 20 minutes ago opened the door. When he saw my father, when he really looked at him, his face went pale. "Mr. Rivera," he stammered. "I didn't know you were." "Step aside," my father said quietly. The guard practically jumped out of the way. We rode the elevator up in silence. I watched the numbers climb. 35, 36, 37. Each floor making my heart beat faster. The elevator doors opened, and we could hear the party still going strong. Music. Laughter. The sound of people celebrating Daniel's freedom from his gold-digging wife. We walked in through the penthouse doors. At first, nobody noticed us. Then someone saw me. "Oh my God, she came back." The music scratched to a stop. People turned. Started laughing again. I heard someone say, "This is better than reality TV." Another person said, "Someone get this on video." Daniel spun around from where he was standing with Rachel. His face went completely white. Catherine looked confused. Jeffrey froze with his drink halfway to his mouth, his eyes going wide. My father cleared his throat. The entire room went dead silent. 400 people holding their breath. "Good evening, everyone," he said calmly, his voice carrying through the room with natural authority. My name is Thomas Rivera, and I own this penthouse. He held up the deed. The official property deed with his name on it. People gasped. Whispers started spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Daniel stammered. What? What are you talking about? My father walked forward slowly, and I followed behind him. Every eye in that room was on us now, but this time it felt different. This time I wasn't the victim being dragged out. I was walking in with purpose. This penthouse, my father said, pulling out more documents. The furniture. The art on the walls. The view you're all enjoying. All mine. Here's the deed. Here's the loan documents from 5 years ago. Here's your signature, Daniel, agreeing to the terms. He started spreading papers on the nearest table. People crowded around to see. Their faces changed as they read. As they understood. Daniel's company was bankrupt 5 years ago, my father continued. The great tech millionaire was broke. Everything was leveraged, underwater, gone. I gave him $75 million to save him. This penthouse was collateral. Catherine shrieked. That's impossible. My son is a... Your son is a liar, my father said, cutting her off without even looking at her. And I have proof. He pulled out more papers. Bank statements showing Daniel's current company was failing again. Financial records showing money being moved to hidden accounts. Then he pulled out the evidence about Rachel. Photos of them together, real ones this time, not photoshopped. Hotel receipts. Text messages. Credit card statements for jewelry and trips and romantic dinners. The crowd started murmuring. Phones came out again, but this time they were recording Daniel's face. His lies. His exposure. The tables had completely turned. Then my father showed everyone proof that the photos of me were fake. He'd hired a forensic digital analyst who'd examine them. The report was detailed, technical, and damning. The photos were created using artificial intelligence and editing software. I'd never even met the man in those pictures. You have 24 hours to get out of my penthouse, my father said to Daniel. His voice was calm but absolute. Final. He'd already called his own security team, and they walked in on cue. Professional, serious men who knew exactly what they were doing. Party's over, my father announced. Everyone out. People scrambled. Some looked ashamed. Some looked excited to spread the gossip. All of them were posting on social media. I could see them typing furiously on their phones as they headed to the elevators. The story was spreading in real time, but this time it was the truth. This time Daniel was the villain. Catherine tried to argue, drawing herself up to her full height, trying to use her society status as a weapon. My father shut her down with a single look. You raised a liar and a cheat, he said. You should be embarrassed. She left without another word. Rachel tried to sneak out in the crowd, keeping her head down. My father stopped her. Not so fast. You're named in the lawsuit too. Fraud. Defamation. You'll be hearing from my lawyers. Her face crumbled. She started crying, but nobody cared. Jeffrey practically ran for the elevator, pushing past people to get away. When everyone finally left, it was just the three of us. Me, my father, and Daniel. The penthouse that had been so full of noise and people was now quiet. Empty. Just the sound of our breathing and the distant city noise from outside the windows. Daniel tried to apologize. He tried to explain. He said it wasn't personal, just business. He said his company needed the divorce settlement scandal to distract from other financial problems. He said a lot of things. I stopped him. This was my moment. I stepped forward, and Daniel actually backed up. He was afraid of me now. Good. He should be. You tried to destroy me, I said. My voice was steady now. Strong. Nothing like the broken whisper from earlier. You made me feel small. Worthless. You threw me away like I was garbage, like I was nothing. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished, I said. You made me give up my career. My independence. My friends. You made my world so small that it revolved entirely around you. Around your needs, your business, your image. And I did it because I loved you. Because I thought that's what marriage meant. Tears were running down my face, but I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry, powerful, free. But you forgot something important, I continued. I'm Thomas Rivera's daughter. I didn't need your money. I never did. I wanted love. I wanted partnership. I wanted respect. You couldn't even give me that basic human dignity. I took off my wedding ring, the massive diamond that Daniel had been so proud of. I set it on the table between us. You can keep it. Sell it. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything anymore. I walked toward the door where my father was waiting. Then I stopped and turned back one more time. Oh, and Daniel? Those videos everyone took tonight? Both times? They're going to follow you forever. Every time someone searches your name, they'll see what you really are. A cruel, calculating liar who destroys people for profit. Good luck with your next business venture. I walked out with my father. We left Daniel standing there in that big, empty penthouse that was never really his. Broken. Exposed. Alone. The elevator ride down was quiet. My father put his arm around me, and I leaned against him like I used to when I was little. You did good, baby girl, he said softly. I'm proud of you. That's when I finally let myself cry. Not sad tears anymore. Relief tears. Freedom tears. 6 months have passed since that night, and I need to tell you how this story really ends. Because it's not just about revenge. It's about rebuilding. I reopened my design studio. My father helped me find a perfect space in a historic building on the north side of Chicago. Within the first month, I landed 2 major projects. Within 3 months, I had a waiting list of clients. Turns out, when you're authentic and talented and not hiding behind someone else's shadow, people notice. One of my designs just won a regional architecture award. The building I created is going to change the Chicago skyline. When I stood on that stage accepting the award, wearing a dress I bought with my own money, I felt more beautiful than I ever did in Daniel's world. Daniel's company went bankrupt. Completely. The investigation into his financial fraud led to criminal charges. He's fighting lawsuits from investors, from business partners, from everyone he lied to. Catherine stopped taking his calls after she realized her reputation was damaged by association. Rachel left him for someone wealthier the moment the money dried up. Jeffrey testified against him to save himself from prison time. I saw Daniel once, about 4 months ago. I was at a coffee shop and he walked in. He looked terrible. Tired. Older. Broken. He saw me, and for a moment we just stared at each other. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. I turned away and continued my conversation with my new client. He didn't deserve even 1 more second of my time. My father and I have dinner every Sunday at his house. The house I grew up in, small and warm and filled with love. We cook together, laugh together, talk about business and life and everything in between. He told me the whole story of how he built his fortune, how he invested wisely over 30 years, how he stayed humble and quiet because he didn't need anyone to know. Money is a tool, not an identity, he said. I wanted you to marry for love, not wealth. That's why I never told you. I needed to know Daniel loved you for you. But he didn't, I said. No, my father agreed. But now you know what real love looks like. It looks like someone who shows up when you're at your lowest. Someone who fights for you. Someone who sees your worth even when you can't see it yourself. Last week, I bought my own place. A beautiful loft with huge windows and exposed brick, overlooking the Chicago River. I furnished it myself. Decorated it myself. Paid for it with money I earned myself. Every corner of it is mine. Really mine. I attended a gallery opening last month featuring my building designs. I wore gold. A stunning gold dress that made me feel like the queen I am. But this time I chose it. I paid for it. I owned it. Not because of a man. Not because of anyone else. Because I wanted to. People ask me if I regret those 5 years with Daniel. Honestly? No. I don't. I learned who I am. I learned what I'm capable of. I learned that you can survive anything when you remember where you come from and who you are at your core. They thought they could break me. Daniel, Catherine, Rachel, Jeffrey, all of them. They thought they could humiliate me so completely that I'd disappear forever. They forgot I come from strength. I come from a father who built an empire with his hands and taught me that dignity isn't about money or status. It's about character. That night changed my life. But not in the way they intended. They wanted to destroy me. Instead, they freed me. So here's what I want you to remember from my story. You are never powerless when you know your worth. People will try to make you small. They'll try to control you, diminish you, erase you. But you are not defined by how others treat you. You're defined by how you rise after they knock you down. I'm Elena Rivera. I'm a successful designer. I'm a survivor. I'm my father's daughter. And I'm just getting started.